Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier have been jawing at each other for quite some time now, and they are finally set to face off against one another at UFC 281. But before we get there, let's take a look at the history behind these two elite lightweights, which almost spilled out into the stands at a UFC event. It all started earlier this year after Michael Chandler's stunning KO win over Tony Ferguson, after which he took to the mic to call out a few names, but interestingly enough, he left out Dustin Poirier in the call-out, something Poirier noticed as he tweeted out, "A lot of names being said by Iron Michelangelo, but I'm not hearing mine, respectfully." Although this sounded like some playful banter from Poirier, Michael Chandler took it to heart and decided to speak out as to why he didn't say Poirier's name. Quote, "He completely disregarded me, acted as though I didn't deserve to be where I was. So maybe it's a little bit more of a personal issue, but I also don't think Dustin... Is Dustin a draw? You know, I guess he is the number 2 guy, ranked number 2 now, but he's kinda just stayed at number 2. To which, once again, Poirier took the banter route as he questioned Chandler's ability to take punishment as he called him Michael Chandler on Twitter. To which Chandler had a lengthy response, bringing up Poirier's previous losses as he tweeted out, "Speaking of Michaels and chins, congrats to Michael Johnson on his KO tonight. First KO set September 17th, 2016. UFC Fight Night Poirier vs. Johnson. Clean KO at 1 minute 35 seconds of the first round in Hidalgo, Texas. Michael earned a Performance of the Night bonus." At this point, it seemed clear to anyone who could see that these two needed to settle their differences inside the Octagon. But at UFC 276, the two nearly came to blows outside of one. Just take a look at this. After which, the two would take to social media and do several interviews explaining what happened. So first, let's start with Dustin Poirier, who had this to say about the altercation.
"I knew somewhere this was gonna come up. The thing with me now and my wife, we spoke about it. I'm not tweeting, look, nothing negative towards nobody in interviews, online, nothing. If I have something to say, I'm gonna say it when the person's present. And that's what you saw right there. I had something to say to him, and I got it off my chest, told him what I felt about him, and that's it. You know, if he ain't here to defend himself or for me to speak in front of him, we don't need to talk about it."
But Poirier did have a lot to say on another interview where he predicted that he would do bad things to Chandler if the two were to ever fight, as he believes Chandler can't take his power. As he said, "If you're getting hurt by Tony Ferguson and dropped by Oliveira, guys like me, guys like Connor, if we touch your chin, it's gonna be bad." While Michael Chandler had the opposite reaction to the altercation, so let's hear his side of the story.
I can, yeah. I mean, I walked down there with my beautiful wife, who's here with me in London, and we had our seats, and we were walking over there, and the security guards came over there and basically, said something to the effect of, "Hey, he's not going to sit over there." And I thought, okay, that's interesting, and we walked over. All of a sudden, I heard some chirping, some very vile venom being spit in my direction. Didn't know if that was being thrown at me or not. I look over, and Dustin Poirier is pointing at me, so... He obviously had a bone to pick with me that night, Dustin Poirier. It's no secret. He's made it very known that he's ready for a fight. He is thirsty, very, very thirsty for a fight. So he's looking for anybody and everybody to throw venom at. I was the target that night, and I was just trying to watch some fights with my wife. So if you think that's the way that you're gonna get a fight with me, that's the absolute opposite way of getting a fight with me. I'm not here to be in physical altercations in a public forum. Especially with my wife. So, yeah.
Now, it's no wonder that the MMA fan base cannot wait for this fight, as not only are the two elite fighters, but seem to have a genuine grudge match type vibes. However, Chandler did issue a warning for Poirier to be careful about being too emotional.
I think there's a lot of confusion that can happen inside of mixed martial arts careers. It doesn't matter if you're the number 1 guy in the world or the number 100th guy in the world. A lot of confusion can happen. In his mind, he's got some ill will toward me, if you will. And it's going to make it that much easier to knock him out whenever he oversteps, if he and I do step inside the octagon. But I have not lost 1 minute of sleep thinking about Dustin Poirier, and I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing until a fight gets announced. And then I'm going to go out there and finish my next opponent and become the UFC champion next year.
Now, the two did get a chance to clear the air before their upcoming fight, and this is what Poirier had to say about the situation.
I have always, if you ask anyone who knows me or anyone who's heard me speak about Mike, I've always, I've been watching the guy fight for a long time. He's fought a lot of great guys. I've always had praise for him. He's done some great things. But it's exactly the whole thing with me. And it's not like I'm going into this fight with a personal vendetta for the guy. But this is just it. The way he answered that question is not who he was a few interviews ago with Ariel Helwani, or it's not who he was when the mic's in front of him in the octagon. He was a different guy whenever we sat next to each other in Abu Dhabi and spoke. It's just that's what it is.
Chandler added his reasoning as to why he said things he said about Poirier in the past, saying it mainly came down to the timing. So let's hear from Chandler himself.
Interviews and life is all about timing, okay? At the time of the Ariel Helwani interview, Dustin, you've had a phenomenal career. You're talking about you don't know how long you want to do it anymore. You're talking about I don't know if I'm going to fight at 170. You're talking about fighting Nate Diaz, which is no longer on the path of fighting 155. So yes, I do think in that moment when I was thinking about the lightweight division, you weren't one of the guys who was necessarily on the radar, because what am I going to do? Add insult to injury to a guy who's talking about maybe never fighting again? We have a lot of mutual friends, so it's that.
Hey.
And the guy that talked to you in Abu Dhabi in the stands, you and I in the stands before weigh-ins, we had all of that. And then that Dustin Poirier went on record on the microphone after the fight and said, if the UFC wants me to fight Michael Chandler, I'd just as soon go sell hot sauce. So you want to have a ton of praise for me, but then also you would rather sell hot sauce.
Yeah, but I never.
So there seems to be a lot of he said this, he said that between the two, with the actual truth being lost in communication. Regardless, that little bit of miscommunication has turned into something much bigger, which has only increased the stakes of this upcoming fight. Both Chandler and Poirier have guaranteed a fight of the year type of performance when they step inside the octagon at UFC 281. But judging by their previous fights and how they both possess KO power, we wouldn't be shocked that the two settle their differences after one has been KO'd. So if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell beside it so that you're notified the next time we upload a new video. And with that being said, you just watched us break down the beef between Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier. We'll see you next time.